So Second Corinthians 4, 8 through 9 says, we are pressed on every side by troubles, but we are not crushed. We are perplexed, but not driven to despair. We are hunted down, but never abandoned by God. We get knocked down, but we are not destroyed. And today, I'm just grateful for life, health, strength. Grateful for God's grace and His mercy. Grateful for my wife, my children. Um, Grateful for each and every one of you. Grateful for opportunity. Grateful for the rain. Has it been so dry over here? Thank God we got some rain yesterday. Um, and just grateful for everything. This particular verse I decided to share because in my Bible chat I put in um because yesterday it's so funny. And it's I'll be the first one to say too. Like you could speak about certain things, and sometimes you could give people advice. Sometimes you give people good advice. And when it comes to you applying that to your life, you know, it's a lot harder than giving people suggestions, you know. Um, and sometimes, God has used you as a vessel to give people advice or to give people the word, and sometimes that word was for you, you know. Yesterday, if y'all remember, I was speaking about, just being strong and not having an outlet to vent to sometimes, and how how it's kind of tough being a man, because society puts so much pressures on us to be unforgiving, and society doesn't put pressure on us to be unforgiving, but it kind of does. But society is very unforgiving towards men, and especially unsuccessful men. And that's an uncomfortable truth. Whether or not anybody here wants to believe that or not, that's just the reality, And because of that, that puts an extreme level of pressure on you as a man, to do the right thing, to be successful. Um, and, a lot of men take an alternate path just because of this, believe it or not. Like they do things and in what they call to survive, or they do things to live a life, or and break their integrity or commit crimes or whatever it is, because a lot of this pressure comes from us as a surrounding society, And yesterday I got home. I don't know what kind of day I was having yesterday. I wouldn't say it was a bad day, but everything didn't work in my favor. But then when everything don't work in my favor, normally what I do, y'all, is if I see a series of actions, I just go home. you know, I just go home. Like, my day is now over. Let's cut this movie over. That it's just this one over. Let me not let this become any more series of unfortunate events. Let me just go home. And when I walked in the house yesterday, my wife looked at me and she said, "What happened?" And I was like what? You know, she's like, "You just look like you defeated." And I don't know. I went about my business. I was like, "I don't know. I all right." And then I went and I went. We have like the swing chair, and I just felt like being alone. So I went out there, and she came back to me and she's like, "Listen, talk to me. Like, I don't like this look put on your face." She's like, "You could either be depressed or you could be defeated. You know, one of them, you can convince yourself that it could get better. And the next one, you can convince yourself that it's done, you know?" And I thought about that and I was like, that's actually some good advice. You know, if I feeling depressed, I could have happy days. If I feel defeated, I can convince myself that it's done, you know? And this particular part of the scripture, I shared it because it was a good reminder. You see why the author ends it? He says, we are hunted down, but never abandoned by God. He says we get knocked down, but we are not destroyed. You see, and that was my reminder when I read that scripture about that moment when my wife said to me, because, you know, the reality was I was depressed. I can't tell you all why. A series of unfortunate events happened. It really wasn't that bad that I couldn't recover, you know. I'm normally like a up spirit, normally the one to give persons advice on how to get out of depression, you know. But I also have to leave room for Carrie to be depressed, you know. I have to leave room in there for me because at the end of the day, like I experience so much pressures from society on a daily basis, you know? It like it's so many people depending on me, like I yesterday sometimes it just get overwhelming, like I have people calling me, this one family died, this one thing happened, this happened, yeah, this going through that one, this children need to go to school, this need to die. You know what I mean? And I just getting pulled from all four corners of the earth. and and I still have to deal with my family, still dealing with my daughter and the challenges that she going through right now, and the my son and what he going through. And I guess those worldly pressures sort of was coming down on me without me really realizing. I started to get in my head and I started to think, and then this part of the scripture just was a good reminder to me. This was a bounce back for me. You know what I mean? That, hey, listen, man, Gary, you got knocked down, yes, but you were not destroyed. You see, because the only way that I could get destroyed is if God abandoned me. See, without God, we are nothing. Once we have God, we are something. So I wasn't destroyed. I was knocked down, you know? And I went to bed early last night. Before I went to bed, I said my prayers, and I woke up feeling a lot better. I don't know what I dreamed, but didn't remember it, didn't, nothing. But I also feel that after I had the opportunity to speak about it this morning, that, hopefully that my day goes and gets a little bit better, because not many men have this outlet where they could talk to persons who will pray for them. See, a lot of men have these outlets where they talk to people who encourage them, but it ain't always the right thing. Sometimes they talk to their friends and they say, boy, I dad break today, and the person encouraged them to go do something silly that lands them in hot water. Sometimes they talk to people who just give terrible advice, you know? And I just thank God every morning. And that's why, I try my best to come here and, sorry for speaking so long, everyone, but just venting sometimes, because at the end of the day, I thank God that He gave me an opportunity to be surrounded by persons who pray with me and who prays with me, pray and praise with me, so that I have this opportunity to get good advice. So thank you, everyone, for always the good advice. Thank you for the prayers. Thank you for waking up and giving us a moment of your time and giving me a moment of your ears. Sometimes I talk too much, but thank you. I appreciate you. I'm Carrie, and I pass the mic back to the moderator.